Hey, you busy? Mm-mm. Okay, let me run something past you real quick. So I'm at the portion of my life that I have been convinced that we need to properly define the things that can so easily trip us up in life. I don't think that it is wise. I actually believe that it is quite detrimental to your life to continue to operate in a vein of someone else informed you of it. They, quote unquote, said to do it this way. We've always done it this way. I think that there is a quicksand like effect to the soul and to the path and journey of our lives if we continue to operate in that way. Why do you eat the way that you eat? I don't know. This is just how this is the culture that I was raised in. Why do you spend money the way that you spend money? Actually, I got my money habits from my father. I don't know. I never really put no real thought to it. It's just he said to do it this way, so I did it this way. Why are you attracted to certain people, environments? Why are you even in that career path? My family said, I don't know, just I wanted to make sure that I had a way to financially support myself because when I was younger, my family didn't have, or it's been always ingrained in me to go do A, B, and C. Like at some point, we need to stop, do a 360, and say, am I operating from someone else's batteries? Am I operating from a place that is so absent of my fingerprint, but yet I am yielding the benefit of operating in somebody else's dream and somebody else's verbiage and somebody else's mission and somebody else's shoes. And yet I look and I'm like, but these are my legs. So something's not aligning here. And one of the things that has really pierced my heart is around the idea of fear. I feel like we have gotten it misconstrued because fear is definitely something we need to be paying attention to. Yes, it says that how many times in the Bible, fear not, do not be brave and courageous. It's all these things that are continuously documented in the Bible that wants us to understand you don't have to be afraid. God is here. You don't have to be afraid. God is with you. He's gone ahead of you. He's actually he lives inside of you. You have the advocate. It's all these things to fashion this one particular determinant of you don't have to be afraid. God is here. So on the flip side, then how come sometimes we feel it? You see what I'm saying? Like if we are not supposed to feel it, if it's not something that's supposed to enter our emotions at all, then why is it even an option? And in asking those kind of questions, I feel like you get such a revelation from God that you're like, you know what? Thank you. I don't believe that God wants us to blindly relate to him. I think in some regard, you have to ask, can you fine tune this for me? Because I don't want to walk a life where I'm pursuing what I believe God has for me. And then the moment that something enters the chat that even resembles fear, that I start to perceive, well, then this can't be God. Or if something is coming up in my emotions in a particular transaction, I start to feel like I got to bind the enemy. So we have to put fear, and I'm putting air quotes around that, in its proper place. What is that? So we already had the discussion that God didn't give you a spirit of fear. It don't come from him. Have a nice day. We didn't know he gave you but of power, love, and a sound mind. It says that in 1 Timothy, right? So we know that. So then are we misconstruing what fear really is? So I went ahead and I was like, well, then I need to get a better idea of what fear is. Because without doing any research, just from a cultural understanding, what I have perceived for fear to be is you don't feel equipped to do a thing. And when you ask someone, if you had to do your dream job, what would it be? 9 times out of 10 is never really the thing that they're actually doing. And so when you further go into questioning on why didn't you pursue that thing, It looks a lot like, yeah, I had responsibilities and I had to blah, 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 which the foundation of that explanation is they were fearful on what life was going to look like if they actually pursued their dream. Some people even have the extreme that they didn't pursue it because their family would have been disappointed. So they feared being rejected from family. And so that's why they didn't pursue fill in the blank. Some people had it where it was like, yo, if I step out, I'm going to have some enemies in this particular area. And so if you can ask someone the desire of your heart, why wasn't that thing fulfilled when you had the opportunity to do it at one point and still have the opportunity to do it now because you're still breathing? Why didn't you pursue that? If the explanation is founded in anything that looks like fear as we know it, then I believe that that's the fear that God is relating to. I didn't put something in you for you to feel that, for it to harm, halter, or make you pivot from the thing that I called you to do. So I was like, okay, then let's just let's just properly define fear. If you never knew what fear was, you never heard of the word, if you were 2 months old in the spirit, if I had to explain fear to you according to the dictionary, what would it be? So I did exactly that. I looked up the New Oxford dictionaries and the bishops and deacons thereof, and I looked up the word fear. And it actually has two definitions. One is a noun, the other is a verb. So let's read the noun first. Fear, noun, an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. Okay. Verb, be afraid of someone or something as likely to be dangerous, painful, or threatening. So, doesn't that sound like wisdom, though? It's almost as if you were walking down or you were swimming in a pond and an alligator, crocodile, and their step cousins in them came into the pond with you. What's one of the things that you're going to fear? Or what's one of the things you're going to feel? Fear, yes. Because why? Because you were wise enough to detect danger. Will Robinson, like this is a problem. We may want to go ahead and start exiting this particular ecosystem. Yes, something about this makes me feel like this is no longer safe for me. So you mean to tell me that that level of discernment, you mean to tell me that that level of wisdom is shunned when it comes to God? No, not at all. I actually believe that God put that particular emotion as a part of our genetic makeup to be a part of keeping us safe. Yeah, if something don't feel right, if you start to look at a piece of food that's served to you and something feels like, I don't trust this, that's still an element of fear, right? Because it said detecting that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. But we don't see it that way. The way that we've culturally identified fear is it makes you retreat. It makes you about face. Fear looks like very much what Saul and his army was doing when Goliath was taunting for all them days. What happened with them? For 40 days and 40 nights, Goliath came out, said his 16 bars of taunting, did whatever needed to be done. They stood on the other side of the valley, fully dressed in armor, shaking in their boots, literally, and did absolutely nothing. Why? Because they were afraid. Wow, wait a minute. Okay, so how was their fear different than the fear that we've just identified? Oh, because their fear prevented them from continuing down a path that God called them to. Their fear gave the enemy the upper hand. Their fear was so strong, God had to bring somebody else to do it. Do you see the difference? It's one thing to saying, yo, buddy is 9 feet. We're going to have to strategize this in a different way so that we're not plummeted. So this is what we're going to do. And then pull out the piece of paper or whatever it is and say, look, you take that. We're going to go around, go back. And while you're throwing this, we're going to go ahead and go to the left. While you're going to the left, we're going to go to the right, and go ahead and strategize to have the upper hand. The emotion of fear should have just simply been the discerning and the identification of, this is not going to be simple. We're going to have to strategize. This is not going to be a walk in the park. So let's go ahead and put our minds together, our strength together, so that we have a victory. That looks very different from you left your child as a teenage parent because of whatever your reasoning was, and you never came back to have a relationship with this child because you were afraid of facing whatever questions or whatever detriment you brought to this child. So you decided to remain estranged because of the fact that you could not overpower fear. Truly? Fear of what? Of what people may think, of what your new spouse may or may not feel about you, about the fact that you may have to face that part of yourself. Yeah, you did it at 19, but you're 50 now. What's your excuse now? Some people have truly walked a path of fear that God is like, I didn't give you that. Moses, you buried the person when you were in Egypt. Okay, cool. You came back to go ahead and break up another fight. Them Hebrew boys looked at you like, what you going to do? You going to hurt us the way that you hurt old boy? Moses was like, oh no, y'all found out about me. And I don't want to face that part of me. So he ran and went to a whole nother town, a whole nother culture, and lived life over there. And when God dared to be bold enough to say, okay, so I'll let you be comfortable here. You've been there 40 years. I ain't gonna hold you. You got a whole family. You got a father-in-law. You done got married. You did good for yourself. But that's not where I called you to be. So, sir, at this burning bush moment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call you back to Egypt to finish the job because I never told you to leave. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you kindly, but it's not a choice, to go back and free the Israelites. And after all God did, and after all God showed, throw your serpent, turn it to a snake. Ooh, go ahead and put your hand in your coat, put it back out. Ooh, yeah, showed them all that and told them what to do. But he was like, but what if they don't believe me? But what if they don't blah, blah, blah? And then at the end of all that, what did Moses say to God? Read your Bible. That's between you and the Lord. He said, Lord, choose someone else. Choose someone else. I'm glad God didn't hit him with the soldier boy. Someone else, really? Because Moses was so stuck in his fear that he even told God, choose somebody else. That's the fear that the Bible's like, please don't have that. It's okay to identify, yes, something may not be completely right about this, and to do something in an alternate way. But the way that Moses did it, absolutely not. So I felt compelled to bring up a biblical example of what it looks like to feel an emotional discernment that we call fear. That is not what God is referring to when he said, I didn't give you the spirit of fear. A spirit consumes you. A spirit, actually, you have to overpower that. People have to be broke loose from spirits. People have to, like, you ever heard somebody, they had the spirit of anger? Yeah, that's not like, oh, I got upset that one time. Yeah, I was mad that one time that such and such said that. Yeah, I got angry. That is way different than like, oh, you turned into a Tasmanian devil low key when oh, that's a spirit. God said, I didn't give you the spirit of fear. So when I read about Gideon, I was like, oh, whole new understanding on fear, God. And I thank you for that, because I feel like more than anything else, we need a proper understanding of what you're saying and who we are, so that we don't walk this life feeling like we're not equipped. We don't add up to, we should be stronger than. You're human, bruh. I don't know if you read Genesis, but you were actually made for some dirt. The thing we used to play in as kids. That's where we came from. And then he gave us the breath of life and cool, shouts out to breathing and all that. But at the same time, God is not expecting more of you than what he actually knows that you are capable of producing. Feel it. Don't yield to it. You see what I'm saying? So when we go ahead together as a family, okay? And I literally want to read Judges 6. When I read this, I seen Gideon in a completely different way. To give you some backdrop, the Israelites didn't do what they were supposed to be doing. Okay, let me just read the first two verses in Judges 6. I read from the NLT version. The Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight, so the Lord handed them over to the Midianites for 7 years. 2. The Midianites were so cruel that the Israelites made hiding places for themselves in mountains, caves, and strongholds. Pause. So, y'all didn't listen to God. He's been trying to protect you. He done split Red Seas. He done killed pharaohs. He done killed charioteers and charioteers. He done did all these different. At this point, he's like, I done tried to say the stove is hot so many different ways, so many different times, so many different routes in the spirit, and y'all not getting it. So you know what? Go ahead and walk up to the stove. As a matter of fact, let the stove consume you, okay? Because at this point, tired, sir. Y'all don't get it. And no, it's not going to be a quick, oh, let me just get a beat and then we get over it, because y'all don't get it. So 7 years is what y'all need. Because at this point, what are we doing? Wasting time and smiling in the meantime? No, that's not what we're doing. Okay. So then the answer, low key, legitimately, was Gideon. God was like, I got to do something different with somebody, because they getting on his nerves, sir. Okay. So I want to go ahead and read from verse 11. Let's go ahead and drop down. So actually, low-key want to read 10. No, let's read 11. Then the angel of the Lord came and sat beneath the great tree of Oprah. Pause. That's what Oprah got her name, low-key, but she switched around the letters. You can read her documentary. Have a nice day. Let's go again. 11. Then the angel of the Lord came and sat beneath the great tree at Oprah, which belonged to Joash of the clan of Ebenezer. Gideon, son of Joash, was threshing wheat at the bottom of a winepress to hide the grain from the Midianites. 12. The angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, Mighty hero, the Lord is with you. 13. Sir, Gideon replied, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? And where are all the miracles our ancestors told us about? Didn't they say the Lord brought us out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to the Midianites? 14. Then the Lord turned to him and said, go with the strength you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you. 15. But Lord, Gideon replied, how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I am the least in my entire family. 16. The Lord said to him, I will be with you, and you will destroy the Midianites as if you were fighting against one man. 17. Gideon replied, if you are truly going to help me, show me a sign to prove that it is really the Lord speaking to me. Don't go away until I come back and bring my offering to you. He answered, I will stay here until you return. 19. Gideon hurried home. He cooked a young goat, and with a basket of flour, he baked some bread without yeast, and carrying the meat in a basket and the broth in a pot, he brought them out and presented them to the angel who was under the great tree. 20. The angel of the Lord said to him, place the meat and the unleavened bread on this rock and pour the broth over it. And Gideon did as he was told. 21. Then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and bread with the tip of the staff in his hand, and fired flame up from the rock and consumed all he had bought. And the angel of the Lord disappeared. 22. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he cried out, "O sovereign Lord, I am doomed. I've seen the face of the angel, I've seen the angel of the Lord face to face." 23. It's all right, the Lord replied. Do not be afraid. You will not die. 24. And Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and named it Yahweh Shalom, which means the Lord is peace. The altar remains in Ophrah in the land of the clan of Ebenezer to this day. Hold on, pause. Let's pause there. So Gideon was afraid, rightfully so. Why? Because he saw the angel of the Lord face to face. And we already know, even when Moses was like, can I see your face? God was like, get somebody else to do it. You can't see me and live, sir. No one has been able to see me and live. And so Gideon is now having this rationale like, time out. Bruh, I done seen, it's over. I already know what it is. P.O.P. hold it down. He already knew. It's over, sir. You see what I'm saying? And what did God say? It's all right, the Lord replied. Do not be afraid. You will not die. Which means that his fear, the emotion of the fear, was valid. So much that God identified it. Oh, I know why you feel that. But and you know what? And under any other circumstances, sir, you would have very much been, rotisseried. But in this particular example, in this particular transaction, I will spare you because you needed for me to confirm to you that it was actually me talking to you. And so I will spare you. I know what you feel, and rightfully so, but you will not die. DJ Scratch. So why didn't God just go ahead and let him be rotisserie? Because, you're not supposed to be feeling fear, because that's not the fear that God's talking about. He's talking about the spirit of fear. Then I went further because I was like, wait a minute, God, you may be onto something, because now you're giving me revelation. I get excited with the revelation. I went down to verse 25 and check this. That night, the Lord said to Gideon, take the second bull from your father's herd, the one that is 7 years old. Pause. Low key, the same amount of years that I gave y'all over to the Midianites. God is strategic in all his ways. Continue. Pull down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asher pole standing beside it. Pause. God was like, low key, your father and them built a shrine for a God that is not really a God. And I thought I clearly told y'all, do not have any other gods before me. And so before we even go ahead and have you do something fantabulous for the kingdom, I need you to go ahead and ruin that whole situation, break down the pole, ruin the whole Baal altar. I need all of it gone, sir. You understand? Not gone, gone. You understand? Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. 26. Then build an altar to the Lord your God here on this hilltop sanctuary, laying the stones carefully. Sacrifice the bull as a burnt offering on the altar, using as fuel the wood of the Asher pole you cut down. 27. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did it as the Lord had commanded. But he did it at night, because he was afraid of the other members of his father's family household and the people of the town. I'm sorry, go back. So Gideon took 10 of his servants, because he knew he needed some backup. So he was like, listen, y'all just do a real big circle. I'm gonna need 10 of y'all. Okay, great. And did as the Lord had commanded, but he did it at night because he was afraid of the other members of his father's household and the people of the town. Why? Keep reading. Early the next morning, as the people of the town began to stir, someone discovered that the altar of Baal had been broken down and that the Asher pole beside it had been cut down. In their place, a new altar had been built, and on it were the remains of the bull that had been sacrificed. 29, the people said to each other, who did this? And after asking around and making a careful search, they learned that it was Gideon, the son of Joash. 30, bring out your son. The men of the town demanded of Joash. He must die for destroying the altar of Baal and for cutting down the Asher pole. 31, but Joash shouted out to the mob that confronted him, why are you defending Baal? Will you argue his case? Whoever pleads his case will be put to death by morning. If Baal truly is a god, let him defend himself and destroy the one who broke down his altar. 32. From then on, Gideon was called Jerubbaal Baal, which means let Baal defend himself, because he broke down Baal's altar. Time out. Like, wait a minute. The thing of the matter is, if we would have just read it through the eyes of culture, we would have looked at Gideon like, oh, you a punk. You super scary. You scared. As a matter of fact, to be completely transparent with you and honest, the way that Gideon has always been presented to me in scripture, in church, or whatever, has always been he was the scary one. Yeah, Gideon's not the one you want to be on your side because he got the shaky knees. He got the spaghetti legs. You understand? Like, he's very much like, he's not thugging it. And I don't want nobody who's not thugging it with me. Like, you super scary, sir. But now reading it through this lens, this new profound redefining fear lens, I see Gideon as wise. Because everything that God said to do, Gideon did. He may have looked at himself like, sir, how? My family is the lowest and I'm the lowest in that particular clan. He may have been able to identify that, but that was just simply him identifying truth. But he didn't do what Moses did. Moses was like, sir, I can't speak right. Rebuke that name of Jesus. Sir, he named all his flaws. He named all the reasons why the people wouldn't believe him. He named all the reasons why this wasn't a great idea. He then was like, God, go ahead and choose somebody else. Moses, in my opinion, is the true definition of fear, because he was willing to let whatever he was feeling, let him derail and get off course from what God asked him to do. Gideon didn't do that. Gideon was like, you know what? Cool. You said to go ahead and take down the Asher pole, okay, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you carried it 2. Then you said to go ahead and ruin the altar of Baal, and you let it be known that this is actually the one that my father built. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to come up with a strategy, God, because you didn't tell me how to do it. You just told me what needed to be done. Cool. Then I'm going to let wisdom into the chat, because I've discerned through fear that, bro, you go ahead and do this in the morning. It's going to be a mob after you. They're probably going to go ahead and try to interject in you completing God's mission. So let's go ahead and do this. Let me go ahead and get 10 of my homeboys. Yeah, let's go ahead. Yeah, y'all coming with me. And let me also do this at night. Because wisdom says, I identified that I'm fearful of something. What am I afraid of? Let's read. Again, 27. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord had commanded, but he did it at night, because he was afraid of the other members of his father's household and the people of the town. Was his fear valid? Yes. Why? Because we read later on that they was like, who did this? And they were ready to go ahead and do what needed to be done. They went to his father's house. They brought it to the porch and was like, tell your son to come out because we finna lay hands with no prayer, sir. And his father had to intersect, like, why? Let Baal go ahead. If he a God, like, let Baal handle his business. That's Baal's light work, not yours. All right, well, we're going to rename him. So we're always going to know him as Gideon. You can do what you want. I don't care what nickname you give him. We know who his daddy is. Have a nice day, okay? So his fear was valid. And the discernment of that particular emotion was true. But it didn't stop him. It didn't stop him. Because he said, because I know that, and because fear is simply a discernment that appears on the dashboard of your soul to let you know, listen, I want you to take this into consideration as you complete what God asked you to do. Simply, I want you to take this true information, these factors, these variables into consideration as you continue on the journey to complete what God asked you to do. Fear did not stop Gideon. Gideon was like, you know what? Yeah, them boys and my father, they're about that life. So let's do it at night where I don't got to explain to no one, where I don't got to fight to no one, where this don't got to be a bloodbath. But I'm going to finish what God said to do. I'm going to just make sure I do it with the wisdom, with a strategy, with a level of discernment that computes the fear that I'm feeling. Do you understand how different that is? Wouldn't that have just been a breath of fresh air in some of your most impressional moments and some of the most pivotal portions of your life? Wouldn't that have been a breath of fresh air that you didn't have to fight yourself for being human? You didn't have to fight yourself that I shouldn't be afraid. God did not give me a spirit of fear. And you beating yourself up because you feel it. And what you really should have done was, okay, let's identify the truth in that. And then let's make a strategy on that, but let's walk through it. You understand? There were so many things that I was afraid of, and that I wish that I didn't have to carry the extra armor of beating myself up, because you're not supposed to fear that. You're not supposed to feel that. That shouldn't even be a variable in your emotional tank. But now that I look at it, I was afraid to move from New York to Georgia. I didn't know how that was going to go out, but guess what I did? I moved to Georgia. I was afraid of switching career paths. But guess what? After I identified the truth in it, because it's new and I don't like newness and guess what I did? I switched my career path. Early on in the dating scene, when it was trash and God was telling me that, yo, that's your husband, I was low-key afraid. I remember writing a note to myself to remind me that, yo, you're not going out like a sucker. It's not you just being like, oh, I'm just going to aimlessly walk into this situation. Like, no, I need you to understand that your feelings are valid, but you got to really push that to the side because you heard God in this. And guess what? We're married. And what's the extra cherry on top that I need to be able to be like, yo, God don't want you being stronger than what you are. He's not looking for you to be this super duper like robotic person. He knows that you're human. He knows what you face. He knows. So what's the cherry on top for me? The fact of what he told Gideon. Oh my gosh. When I look back at what he said to him, I was like, and God, you know what? Totally new respect for you. Not gonna hold you. He said to Gideon in Judges 6:14, then the Lord turned to him and said, go with the strength you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you. Go in the strength you have. God didn't say, yo, I got to go ahead and do a montage real quick and get you to the Rocky steps with the gray sweatpants and the hoodie to get you stronger than what you are, because you're going to have to be more than what you are to do what I called you to do. Not really. That could be rebuked. That could be debunked. Because God was like, as you are, with what you have, with the way that you feel, go. I'm not going to make you stronger in your own personal strength right now, but I will level the playing field. So where you think you're going out to fight the Midianites with an S, God said, no, I'm going to do it that you actually are going to feel like you just fighting one person. And the strength that you have, you can do that for one person. Go with the strength you have. And what was the very next thing that he said? But Lord, how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I'm the weakest in my entire family. Then that's when God gave him the confirmation. I will be with you and destroy the Mennonites as if you were fighting against one man. All Gideon needed after that was confirmation. Everything that he felt was real. And mostly everything that he felt was truth. But it didn't stop him. It didn't stop him. It didn't make him to ask God, choose somebody else. It didn't make him say, I'm not equipped for this. I'm going to go ahead and run, Jonah. It didn't make him do any of that. So my challenge to you is redefine fear in your life. It's not the presence of the emotion. Listen, when that thing comes into your life and you like, oh, okay, fear identified. What's that? The emotion of fear identified. You dissect it. What's the truth in this? Oh, that if I do this in the daytime, the people that really still rock with Baal, they're going to try to do some harm. Cool. That's step one. Identify the truth. Step two, strategize it. But three, complete the mission. You understand? Identify the truth. 1. 2, strategize behind the identification of that truth. 3, but complete that mission. You understand? Yeah, let's start looking at fear in a different way. The emotion versus the spirit is very different. You understand? But all right, listen, I feel like you got what you needed. You know what these conversations are. They are life-provoking conversations that not the average person's going to have with you, but who your favorite homegirl. Listen, have you been looking at all the things on Created to Multiply on the YouTubes and the .com? Created the number 2 multiply.com, and then also created the number 2 multiply on YouTube, okay? Also, please very much support the Patreon for all things Strive, the letter N as in Nancy, Inspire. We out here doing the Lord's work in these Lord streets. You understand? But I'm going to go ahead and let me go because you got websites and YouTubes and Patreons and all the things to do to support your favorite homegirl, right? Okay, I'll talk to you later. Later.